So, we're going to get started with some very brief introductions and then a brief period of silence, and then I'll just tell you what we're gonna do together. Can Zoom folks hear us? Why don't we have Zoom introductions, just your name, so people know who you are. Starting with Rosalind up in the corner there.
Yeah, this is Rosalind Zeus's, and I'm not sure what you want me to say. I'm not Zoom.
That's it, just your name is good.
My name is not Zoom.
I could not hear you very well. Is that related to the video stuff or Rosalind's computer?
Let me talk with nobody else talking. How's that?
It's still kind of blurry.
Is it?
He's changing
We're
the
increasing the
volume.
volume. Technology, love it.
Better?
No, just, he's still checking or adjusting.
So those of you at home may need to use your meeting room voices so that everyone can.
Oh, no, because it was very low, Rosalind. It's not about you. It's about the computer.
There we go.
Now say hello again.
Hi, my name's Rosalind.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Okay. Next, anybody, there's just. few of you.
Amy Stowe, nice to be here.
Yeah.
You guys are, Patti and Barb are really foggy. Jim, I can see you really clearly, but Patti and Barb are very foggy.
Pardon?
I can't fix that.
Okay, it is what it is.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate your feedback.
Linda.
Hi. Hi, Linda.
Hi, Linda.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Gregory arms.
Zooming in from far away, maybe.
Welcome. Glad to see you. Okay.
Our tech hero and meeting coordinator is Jim Webner. Thank you, Jim. I'm Barb Platt,
I'm Patti Nesbitt.
and let's just start with go around.
Joe Limited.
Frank Massey.
Alan De Silva.
Scotty Silva.
Howard Zissis.
Douglas Mauer.
Alan Wright.
Great, welcome. Let's just take a brief moment to settle into some silence and then we'll get going. And get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for starting late. Thank you for bringing your snacks up. Patty and I wanted to start by just saying briefly what our vision is for the 4 sessions that we have this winter and spring, which are the 4th Thursdays this month, February, March, and April. And when we thought about, that's not very much time to have 4 sessions. And we did try to do some thinking about what does the meeting need, what do new folks need, what do old folks want? And we came up with a pretty generic title of Quaker Faith and Practice. But what we really want to focus on the first 2 sessions is meeting for worship and our experiences and what that's about. The 3rd session will be on Quaker process, especially obviously looking at our meeting for business practices, but also how we work together in committees and other Quaker settings, what's unique and works about what we call Quaker process. And then the last session would be looking at how, as individuals in a community, do we really live our faith out in the world? What are we called to do? How are we called to act? And that's, again, a very broad topic, but when we get to it, we'll get to it. One of the things we want to do each time is have this be very participatory. So we're going to talk a little bit, but we're going to ask you all for input and working together in a classroom setting and sometimes going into some small groups. for conversation together. At which point, I think with 3 or 4 on Zoom, Jim will get you all in a breakout room together, and then we'll divide up here. Do you want to say a little bit, anything more about that, the kind of overview or themes that?
Well, how we got to these topics was guided by the input from the last meeting for learning, where we asked at the end, what kind of things are we interested in? And clearly, the number one topic was discernment. Both for content and because of where it is and where we are in the meeting itself. So we are approaching that topic through the side door by coming into some of the essences of Quaker faith and practice. And there were 3 other topics that we brought up: in witness, spiritual gifts, and spiritual disciplines. So we have consciously woven those concerns into our design of this program.
So what we're gonna do today, in the next, whatever we have, hour or so, is Patti has some material and ideas ready to present to us. And then, following that, we want to take a little time to look at Quaker jargon. And again, for those that are either new or have been around for a long time, we use a lot of terms that we think we know what they mean, but let's unpack them a little bit and see what we think they really mean. Terms we use about worship. Because we feel it's important to bring in outside voices and not just listen to ourselves, we have a short video that Minneapolis Friends put together several years ago about meeting for worship, and especially about less about the vocal ministry piece as the listening piece and the individual piece of being in meeting for worship. And following that, then we'll go into small groups and work on these queries and have some sharing time together, and then we'll wrap up. So we hope you like that plan. And Patti can take it away with some of her thoughts about meeting for worship.
Well, at first I want to just acknowledge, it feels sort of presumptuous for me to be talking about worship. Most of us in this room have been worshiping for years. And so each one of us could be running this, this seminar. At the same time, I'm really glad I reviewed all these notes to begin with. I recognized this morning in worship, or this week, I guess, I was beginning to prepare for worship during the week already, and it actually it changed the dynamics for worship this morning for me, because I felt like I had already been dipping into that worshipful space all week, and so I had less riffraff in my head to get rid of, because I've been sort of allowing the space of the divine consciousness more frequently. So, I think the first thing to say about Quaker worship is that it flows out of our theology. And it's all, and in fact, all of our faith and practice is based on the confidence that they're of that of God in everyone. And that suggests that the guide, the divine guide, the opening to the other, is available and present to each one of us and to the worshiping group at all times. Now, did you say Marshall?
My name is Douglas Mauer.
Douglas, I'm writing it down because my brain doesn't always hold details.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you. Douglas had told me he has not been here before, and you're new to Quaker practice, so I really appreciate being able to address this to you as well as the rest of us. And one of the reasons we're talking about jargon later on is because I fall into using Quakerese without being conscious of it. And if you have questions, show me on your face and ask if I'm not answering, okay?
Well, I'm beginning to learn a little Quakerese, and one of these things has to do with the days of the week. So
Okay.
I know now about Quaker thoughts about the days of the week.
Excellent, excellent. It's a good beginning to start on the first day. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, so let me go back to Quaker worship is based on recognizing that of God is accessible to each one of us at all times. And that guidance can be perceived by anyone inwardly. And so when people say, why do you worship in silence? It's because we want to get out of our own way in order to listen. It builds for us a culture of listening. That's what we do. We get together to listen and we live in expectant waiting as if we will, in fact, hear if and when it's time. Our worship begins in silence with no prearrangements, except that there is always a person designated to close the meeting. And we gather together to hear how God speaks to us, to each of us, through each other, which makes it different than worship alone. But worship together, we listen with one another to discern what is mine, what's just my brain speaking to me versus what is the divine speaking. And how we gather is to maximize that. There's really no best way to worship. We come as we can, not as we can't. So where we are, Joan's prayer during COVID, here I am as I am in the world as it is. That's how we go to worship. There's no prescribed rules. We open as we can. In worship, the experience is that God leads us to the worship, to the information, to the insights that we need. Sometimes in worship, I need, apparently, because I can't get out of the track of, I need to go through what's going on in my week. And I used to criticize myself internally for not being very holy, so to speak. Not doing the right thing, and I finally realized, no, I now have a companion with the divine to figure out what's in front of me that I have to handle. It gave me a lot of permission just to ease into accepting the assistance for handling all that I was handling. So I trust now that I am led into the worship that I need. And I suspect that that's true for the meeting too. That if we are able to let go of our own self and open ourselves to surrendering to the divine, that we will get what we need. Trusting that there is a possibility of an immediate encounter with the divine, simply and directly. Anytime, any place, anytime, any place, we can enter into what Bill Tabor calls the divine stream. And you know, I want to read what Bill talks about the divine stream because it's so powerful. It's an image that I have loved for years. Because water is the blood of the planet. It's there everywhere all the time. And the idea of being able to walk into the divine stream, he calls it the invisible stream into which we can step at any time. The heart of worship is communion with this invisible but eternal stream of reality. Worship then is something which can be entered at any time of the day or night when we are ready to step into that stream, either through the grace of God or through our own great desire, which also involves the grace of God. Actually, you wrote about it more powerfully elsewhere, but I don't remember where it is. Frank, do you remember where it is? No, I see a smile. You do not. It's here. It's okay. Bill Tabor is I'll mention this, Douglas. William Tabor wrote many pamphlets from Pendle Hill and many other books. He was a teacher at Pendle Hill. And, was a recorded minister in Ohio Yearly Meeting, a conservative. And passed away in 2005 or 6. I was honored to be able to study with him and, be mentored by him for a number of years. And this pamphlet, Four Doors to the Meeting for Worship, has become a Quaker classic. I'm gonna share what he's talking about.
Do you have copies of that?
You know what, there are many copies of this, around the meeting, and, it's possible after this, I'll go into our room where there are a lot of spare copies, and ministry and council bought them several years ago.
years ago.
Yeah. So, here's my note about the stream. That he, well, I mean, it meant so much to me. I used to do work in hydrology and, water quality, so it really spoke to me. He uses the metaphor of a river, of a stream that, is an eternal reality, which has been present since the beginning of time. He said it's the same stream that Jesus stepped into. It's the same stream that Moses stepped into, the same stream that all the people over time have stepped into, because it's eternal and ever present. And we can step into it at any time at all. He says it's he uses the metaphor of a stream because of, it washes, it cleanses, it's a universal solvent, it flows. I always like the idea of being able to get into a canoe or a kayak and keep your paddles in the water and your life jacket on, and you go over the great falls and the little falls, and you get out to the sea. And you can just have that sense of divine progress, guiding, where we're involved in doing all we can to keep upright, not fall in, knowing that we can also get out of the water and get back in to the boat to be able to stay on the path. And so the idea of stepping into that stream, whether you're tubing or you're swimming or you're floating, is a really useful, because like you can do that anytime. My goodness, you can take a shower and be in the stream in the morning. So the idea of connecting with that divine energy anytime, anywhere, all day long, if you want to, wash your hands, you're in the stream of divine love. The idea of coming back to harmony and connecting with, what am I supposed to do, God? Oh, I can wash my hands and be in the stream again. Anytime, simply, you can connect. So, in order to go to worship, he says there are 4 different ways that you get into the stream. And he talks about the door, the first door being the door before. I think of this as the door that you enter during the week before you come to first day worship. It's the worshipful state of consciousness that we enter in order to grant that nourishment, a connecting and remembering who we really are. It helps us to let go of, even momentarily, the preoccupations and the distractions of the week, to reconnect with who we are. We are people of love, people of truth and light. And once we touch that, we go, oh, okay, I know where I am. So then we become less reactive, and we're in that state of connection that helps us be more true to what we're called to be. He says, it allows us to dip again and again into that living stream, so that when we come to first day meeting, we are returning to a familiar reality that we have renewed and tenderized all week long. I love that word, tenderized. The book we wrote is A Tender Time. he talks about tenderizing as George Fox loved the word tender because it meant that people were open, their hearts were open and vulnerable to love, to be changed. The second door, he called the door inward. It starts usually Saturday night or Sunday morning. In the conservative tradition, the elders of the meeting began meeting for worship on seventh day night.
Excuse me, I'm confused about your use of the word conservative.
Okay.
Is that Quaker jargon?
Thank you. Now can I refer to you,
Sure,
please?
conservative, they conserve the old tradition. They are closer, I'm gonna say closer to the founding of Quakerism than what we have become today. They're much more Christ-centered than most of us today, but it's not that they're conservative socially, politically, anything like that, but they conserve the old traditions and practices of early Quakers. Simple.
Thank you. Thank you. And one of their practices is to have the elders and ministering council begin worship the night before the community gathered as a whole.
Well, one of the problems that I have is that my wife goes to a church which is conservative in the other sense.
Correct, correct.
And,
Thank you for asking the question so that you were understanding. Appreciate that.
yeah,
Move along, okay, thank you. So the second door was to start worship ahead of time. Personal retirement on Sunday morning, we call it pre-worship. It's just opening that stream with a special attentiveness so that when we walk into worship, it's already started. When Sunday arrives, I ask Michael not to talk. I try to stay quiet because I begin to think about, I'm on my way in for a special connection with somebody I really love and with each other. And so I'm not reading the Post. I'm not turning on the news at all, because it's a pre-worship that opens me up so that when I get there, I can go deeper faster. The door within, when we're there in worship itself. This is the heart of worship, where we quiet our minds so we can hear the leadings of the Spirit. And then why do we do this? Several reasons. To be open, to share, to be shown greater truths, to be searched by the light, and to be laid bare before God. And this is a heavy term I'm not gonna get into at this point, but that's that's a distraction I don't wanna go to. To see and accept the light, to accept our failings, and seek forgiveness, and to come into fuller relationship with the Spirit and one another. To grow more faithful to that which is larger than ourselves, to remember the big picture, to reconnect, and to humbly recognize our lives really are not our own. This is really not about me. And all of that puts us in a position to reinsert our place into the community of faith. And as we be vulnerable and surrender to the mystery of being in the here and now, at the same time, we're in the eternal now. It connects us to merge into more godliness. You know that term, there's that of God in each of us. I recognize what that means, that we have an opportunity to grow into more godliness. And when we reconnect like that and experience that presence, be touched by the holiness, we can reconnect. And all of that builds community. All of it. And it allows the whole community together to be enfolded, join in a communion of sorts, to be changed. And that leads us to our last step. The step of giving witness. And be rejoicing. And the last step, the door beyond, in which we shake each other's hands, you know, that's it sort of seals the deal. It says, Barb, it's not just good morning, it's not just good morning, it's, I have met you in the light, and I'm committing to you, and you and you and you, that my life is changed, and I will support you in that change, in giving witness to the love that we have just been touched by. So it's beyond a good morning. It's a commitment. It's a promise. I will hold you in the light and live the light the way I've been given it all week long, and meet you again next week. And help you and ask and accept your help to help me to live in the light. That's what that handshake is. It's a promise. And that's the last step. It takes us into our testimonies. It's how the testimonies grow out of deep worship. I think that's pretty profound. Okay. So there's a lot more we can talk about.
And we will.
Right.
I think, excuse us a moment, I think we should go right into, those questions.
Is it that time already?
No, but I'm gonna switch up our little schedule here.
You've had time to think about it, go for it.
Yeah, so we wanna go ahead and get people in probably groups of 3. The folks on the screen can have a group of 4, and they have the queries. The queries are here, and take about maybe 15 minutes in your group of 3. And ideally, and if there's a group that ends up being 2, that's fine. I think what can be really nice is for each person to have 3 or 4 minutes to talk and nobody responds. So if Joan and Frank can tell me your name again. Your name. You know, if you all are in a group, listen to Joan and then listen to Frank and then listen, and not necessarily respond to each other. And we'll give you a little, if you take 15 minutes or so, we'll give you a little ding to switch who's responding. And of course you can have a conversation, but, it looks like there's 3, you 3, well, maybe Butch Cornell will want to go with different people. You've been talking,
We've probably talked to each other.
70 or so mix yourself up into groups of 3 here, and you all have your breakout room. And we will come back together in 15 minutes. Okay. We don't have time.
Yeah, I think we should do the
I don't know whether there's been anybody like me coming into.
maybe.
If anyone needs to take a group to another room, and go get quieter, just go to another room.
What is it up there?
It's warmer today. I think we're just above freezing,
Oh, okay.
bright and sunny.
Us too, our driveway is now only a sheet of ice.
All right, let's. Yeah. Go get them again. I'm gonna, that's the trouble with small groups.
When you ship them to them,
It really into.
Oh, when you're out, I was feeling the same way.
You got 2 albums here, I got a. It's a good sign.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in my family, we just say an hour, but it really is an hour.
Come on back.
The builder.
Yeah, of course.
Not N-A-U-E-R.
So here's what we're gonna do, because we never have enough time, and we did get started late. We're not gonna get into the jargon of what's a popcorn meeting, what's a this and that. We will save that for another time, but particularly, we might get into that on Wednesday night when there's a Zoom session, kind of open-ended. Come and talk about Quaker Worship Zoom session this week. But what we'd like to do is go ahead and show this short video, which has some people that aren't us sharing some of their experiences. And then we can all talk a little bit more about it. So this video, I hope I got the right one over, Jim. Minneapolis Friends Meeting put together, it's about the listening, more of the listening part of Quaker Meeting for Worship. I assume everybody can see it. Hear it, where it's going.
Let me just.
Ready, full screen.
For worship as I've experienced them come sort of in two varieties, programmed meetings and unprogrammed meetings. And it's a group of people that come together in community. You sit in silence, and should you be moved by the Spirit to speak, you're welcome to do so.
Well, we do what we call centering down. We sit in quiet, relaxed, try to take the busyness out of our thoughts, try to empty ourselves and open ourselves to whatever might be revealed to us. When you go to Quaker worship, at first, when you're new to it, it's very uncomfortable because you're not used to sitting quietly. Most people have not experienced real silence where you just sit and wait. And you go from that first uncomfortableness to a feeling of welcoming this total peace and the permission to just open yourself to truth. And then as people feel the need to say something, they rise quietly and say it. And you as a worshiper either use that to enlarge upon what your thoughts have been, or you just let it go if it doesn't fit with what you're thinking.
Everybody is, an individual, and we can talk about our experience a little differently, whether it's prayer, praying to a personal God or conversation with a personal God. Other people put lots of different language on it. This experience of meditation, contemplation, prayer, with the universe or energy, whatever it might be. There's a lot of room for that in the meeting for worship. And yet at the same time, it's not that all these individuals are having their own isolated experience. Mm-hmm. We all come together, and I think there's a recognition that we are together.
There's more a depth of the spiritual impact of this on the members because they are together. The fact that we are doing it corporately in loving relation to one another as well as to God means that there is, in my experience at least, a much more likelihood of a really profound experience than I can generally have just by myself.
It was just a very, I felt a very beautiful way in which to begin the process of speaking or of connecting with the higher power, the God, the Creator. There was no interference. And yet there was responsibility, for myself, to get to a point where I began to either think about the message of that day or think of how that message related to me and my faith It led to a much more satisfying and deeper thought about my religious journey, my connection.
When people speak, they speak from their own experience. And it's through those experiences and that perspective that I'm often called to consider something in an entirely different way.
I really like to be quiet. I like setting aside some like intentional time to just listen. And I feel like that's another thing that has been like emphasized, that I've heard other people emphasizing to me, like as I was growing up, was a focus on like listening, and to like God in you. Prayer being more an act of like listening than talking or like putting something out there. Not, I mean, it's all inclusive, but just there really being an emphasis on being quiet and like allowing kind of like the clutter and the drama to subside for a little while, and really being able to be with yourself and in your center in community.
It gives me an opportunity to shed all the trivia around me and to just be. And so I have a little mantra that I have learned to help me shed all those trivia. It's a little German verse I've made up. Lieber Gott, sei bei mir, dear God, be with me. Und fülle mein Herz mit deiner Liebe. And fill my heart with your love. I just feel like I'm part of a larger reality. It's not about me, it's about me and all the other members of the meeting whom I have known for so many years, or even new people, in other words, whoever comes in is part of that.
Every once in a while, we experience what we call a gathered meeting. And everybody feels it. You can't define it. But it's a meeting where everyone feels the Spirit moving.
I wrestle with the silence a bit. And yet that's one of the strongest draws for me, is being able to be in community and be in silence is a real gift, but not something that my busy mind can enter into sort of easily sometimes.
I think to give myself grace and to know that it's easy to look around the meeting and everybody is kind of in their own space and thinking that everybody's having this deeply meaningful spiritual experience but me, and knowing that sometimes I think just being in it, just allowing yourself to be in that space, and opening to however and whatever you can in that quiet, that there's value in that, and that peace is, that being there even in a fidgety state is bringing myself and is a part of worship.
It replenishes my sense of who I am and where I'm going. It gives me a sense of purpose, and that's what it's all about.
Thank
Wrap up, right. Thank you. Do you need the lights back on? Yeah, yes, we did that video. So we wanted just to ask, give this time to share here in a group. So I want to ask if there's any things that you want or perceptions that you want to share from your individual sharing. You want to throw out here?
4 questions.
Wait, right, 4 questions. Aha moments. Anyone?
I really appreciated what one of the persons on the video talked about the silence and the struggle with silence, early on. And I think the 3 of us talked about the listening and, finding ourselves. And for me, the quieting myself or dealing with the silence didn't happen just at the beginning when I first started coming to meeting. I still struggle with it sometimes. And it takes me longer to center down some Sundays than it does other times. And so I have to learn to live with it and to listen to myself and what's going on within myself and the reason it's taking longer. So the listening is to self as well as to the spirit and the messages around.
Thank you.
I also think that there is great value in that repetition of not feeling comfortable with silence and working really hard to enter ourselves into silence. I think in the work, we learn to value what we're doing, and each time over years and years, it becomes deeper and deeper and deeper. If we could say at this moment, we've all learned exactly how to enter silence, I think that we would have lost something great.
So would it change us? Linda, picking up on what you said, and Frank, would it change us if we were to enter that door that Bill Tabor talks about of dropping into the worshipful state during the week more frequently? Or how would it change us?
That makes me think about the phrase expectant waiting, because I think by having more times of worshipful prayer, whatever we want to call it individually during the week, we're a little more accustomed to the fact that that's a reality, is something that we can do, that is available to us. It's like, it's a reminder that it's available to us. And I was thinking about the phrase expectant waiting, which we use a lot. I was telling Patty this morning, last night I was driving back from the airport. I've been down in North Carolina for a few days, had a great time. And I was thinking about expectant waiting, and I thought, wow, that is a very radical idea, because we're not wishing that the Spirit will be with us or hoping that the Spirit will be with us. We are expecting that the Spirit will be with us. And how can we expect that? Because we've experienced it before, and we know it's real. But for those of us, I'll speak for myself, that don't have a very disciplined daily spiritual practice, at times in my life I've had, other times in my life I don't. It's easy to say, well, here it is Sunday, what, just go to meeting, but it's not always connected in the way I might want it to be to that every day. So that's kind of a rambling answer. That thought about the dipping in daily.
I know when I was enrolled in the School of the Spirit program on spiritual nurture, we had 8 weekends over the course of 2 years. Sometimes they were, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, long weekends. And the more we were together in worship, or even in active silence, or in group spiritual direction, it's like we were in that consciousness continually of the reality of the other. And perceptibly were changed by that love, that and intentionality of being together to study and to learn and open. And so that when you went into worship, sometimes it's like, 8:30 in the morning after breakfast, you come into worship, and it was like, sometimes I just went straight deeply into worship in this incredible sense of presence. Quickly, within minutes. And, I've missed that sense of depth that comes from having sorted out all of the monkey mind, all of the busyness. The quieting has been done for several days in a row, and I miss that. There was maybe before the Iraq War, there was a group I remember meeting up in some Philadelphia yearly meeting house for the weekend. And we had worship in the meeting house. There was a dorm on site, so we could come and go. It lasted 48 hours. And I remember sitting there for the first hour or two, and it was like, I was barely quiet. And it was like every hour you went deeper and deeper, and it was like not sleeping. It was just a perceptible clearing out. And 9 o'clock worship often begins that process, and it's like, just when it gets open or closed, it's like, I'm just beginning. Do we have to stop? So it's one of the reasons that I try to keep first day morning quiet, so that I'm already closer to that space when I actually walk in the building. Have any of you experienced that?
I have an interesting thing, which is that I have about a 40 to 45-minute drive to get here. And I had originally thought that is a real problem to come to this location. And I ended up finding that it's incredibly important to me, because I feel like I'm getting away from everything. And especially from listening to certain composers, it's very calming, it's very pleasing to. And then when I'm driving back, I am very much aware that you have a choice. You can either drive right back into all of that, or you could take this with you into the week. So it's really interesting for me.
I think with that one guy who had the German phrase, when he talked, he addressed that right at the end, and he said, and then I know there's purpose ahead. Wasn't like a to-do list, but coming out of worship, it was like, there was that sense of groundedness and moving forward. And I think part of what I liked about that, what he said, what others said, what he said is, he was so clear and so knowing that reality, it wasn't any question that was his experience and the way he expressed it.
I'm gonna think, when I used to have to study and I'm short of time to be ready for the exams, something I used to do, a little bit of a trick would be, I'd write draw two plots, morning and evening, AM, PM, and then I would force myself, I've only got this number of hours, therefore each subject gets only this amount of time. So early this morning, it's amusing to me that it never occurred to me to think about worship. I did the same thing for what I need to do for the year ahead. And I wrote out how I want my days to be structured. And I was pleased that I came up with something that I think I'm comfortable with. Into all of this, nowhere did I put in worship time. And I'm sitting here, I'm listening to everybody talking, I'm thinking, we put time for reading, we put time for exercise, we put time for all these things that are very important to you. And there you are, the spiritual life is not placed in there. And I thought that was very interesting.
So to answer your question, would we be different if we did it during the week? I don't speak, I am different when I have taken time before Sunday morning, before 11 o'clock on Sunday morning. That it is a practice. And yes, the Sunday is built on the shoulders of Monday through Saturday, or sometimes in there. And so, yes, I know that I'm different on Sunday morning if I have taken some time during the week.
There's also the aspect of the fact that when we, as a community, as Quakers, when we stepped out of, historically, we stepped out of the churches and we stepped away from the ministers, and we all began to embrace Fox's notion that we're all capable of this direct communication and so forth and so on. We also liberated ourselves to the opportunity to be in that place of, I don't know if you want to call it communion or whatever, all of the time. And so, when I did my thing a couple of weeks ago about spiritual journey, I opened with my little vignette of Tevye, my forebearer. There he is, he's working. The horse has gone lame, he's hauling the carriage back to the dairy. And what's he doing? He's not waiting till he gets to the synagogue. He's not waiting until he gets, the minion together and so forth and so on. He's in direct communication while he's laboring. And, and so there's nothing to prevent any of us from living in that particular way, and that's one of the things about it's easier in Sandy Spring than it is in other places because the Triumph community is here. You go to the hardware store and cross paths with a friend, with a capital F, not just a small F, and so forth and so on. And so you're in that place all of the time, as opposed to, kind of trying to maintain it in a land of strangers.
Excuse me, please, there's another piece of Quaker jargon that I've just heard that I don't understand at all, and that is centering.
Thank you. And Douglas, we're gonna talk on Wednesday night about jargon. It'll be a link that is available in the silent announcements for a follow-up, and we're gonna talk about jargon then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
because we just ran out of time. Anyway, any of us are glad to talk more, but, we'll have more time on Wednesday night.
We are
Centering is a Quaker jargon now. It's not just Quaker.
It's not just Quaker.
Yeah, centering is not just Quaker, yeah.
But we're gonna be,
But I had never heard it before.
Really?
Oh, well,
So you're hearing it in our context.
it's around. Let me ask and leave the question here. So Frank commented about how he has changed during the week if there's spiritual practice during the week. I wanna have us think about does that also change the meeting? And I mean, yeah, people have experience of that. I wanna start being able to put that in words next month when we come back.
I do every morning at 8:30. I do Pendle Hill worship, so if any of you want to do a daily practice, you could do that.
What's that?
It's online worship.
It's online worship at Pendle Hill at 8:30 in the morning. I've been fortunate, it started during the pandemic, and it's one of the benefits, one of the good things that's come out of the pandemic. And some days there's 100 people on. And other days there's 40 or 50, but it helps me.
5:30 in the morning is a better time.
5:30, yeah, I don't get up there. Well, we do have people on there from England, from other places, although the West Coast is not.
You never find it at 5:30 in from other locations.
Yeah. So
Thanks, friends.
So we're gonna be faithful to closing on time with many thanks for online folks in the room. Go ahead. Fran.
7 o'clock Wednesday.
I think it's 7:30.
Okay.
7:30 to 8:30, and it's kind of a free for all. It's gonna be an open Zoom. I'll be there. I don't know how you'll be there.
It's not
And
free for all, totally. We're
Not
gonna
free
talk
for
about church.
we're gonna talk about follow-up to
Need no
today.
structure?
Yeah, no structure.
It'll be one thing we'll address jargon.
But why don't we just take one brief moment? Thankful silence together.
Thank you. Thank you.